Imagine coming home from school and running to turn on the TV to tune into your favorite show. You were probably thinking, wow, they are living the sweet life. But little did you know that these child actors allegedly endured toxic work conditions at the hands of adults they thought they could trust. Now those child actors are speaking out against Hollywood, Dan Schneider, and Nickelodeon. I recently watched Quiet on Set, and boy oh boy did my heart break. Quiet on Set is about the alleged working conditions that children faced on Nickelodeon TV shows created or written by Dan Schneider in the 90s or early 2000s. In episodes 1 and 2, we really get to see who Dan Schneider was and how he came about. And Dan Schneider was the creative mind behind so many of our popular TV shows. Shows like All That,
Box, stop, look and watch. Ready yet? Get set. It's All That.
Kenan and Kel, Victorious, iCarly, Sam and Cat, and Zoe 101. Zoe 101 and iCarly were personally my absolute favorite. Now this documentary is not the first time that Dan Schneider has been called out for his very questionable behavior. If you go on YouTube or like go on Google and check, child, they have been keeping their foot on Dan Schneider's neck for years. But one thing about this documentary is that they gave us the evidence that is already kind of out there, but it was compiled so nicely because we really get to see the questionable things that Dan wrote in these scripts for these children to do, for other children to see. Because once again, Nickelodeon is a children's network.
My throat is my instrument. I'm a throat player.
Doesn't count.
And it sounds kind of gross. Ever said something, like a sentence, and thought to yourself, wow, like I bet nobody else on earth has ever said those exact words that I just said. That happens to me a lot. So now, just for fun, I'm gonna say 3 sentences that I bet not one person has ever said before in the history of mankind. Sentence number 1. Oh man, my uvula got stuck between that hamster's toes. See? That could never happen because your uvula is that swingy thing in the back of your throat right here. Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out. Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty.
And it's clips like this that's why Dan Schneider is still being called out to this day, and low-key, he ain't taking no accountability, child. First 2 episodes on Quiet on Set really shocked me because I did not know about so many of the things that were going on behind the scenes, and seeing some of my favorite TV shows and seeing some of those actors go through like really crazy questionable things had me like, what the fudge is going on? And it also showed me that like adults are really sick in the head. And sometimes these weird, sick adults, they're really trying to program children to do things that they should not do. As a kid, watching these scenes that are now being shown to be controversial, I wasn't even thinking that as a kid. Like the scenes with them, you know, spurting stuff on the face and like Zoe 101 or in iCarly with the feet. I wasn't thinking as a kid like, oh, that looks a little funny. Like, that's not right. I'm just like looking at the show laughing. But one thing that really stuck out to me in the first 2 episodes was the segment on Amanda Bynes and her rise to fame. I wasn't watching Amanda Bynes when she was on the Amanda Bynes show because I was really, really little. I was a baby. But the show I do remember watching is What I Like About You. I love that show so much, y'all. I wanted to be Amanda so bad because I just remember thinking she is just so beautiful. She is so funny and she is so free. Look at her living in New York City, and I lived in New York City at the time and I still do. So I just really related to Amanda in that way. Seeing how successful she was in the beginning and how things took a deep turn as she got older, it also really broke my heart as well, because it's like, how can someone so talented with the world at their hands, surrounded by adults, right, that you think you can trust, how can they go and just fall so far and so deep to where we see Amanda now, and it's just like the Amanda we see now is nothing like the Amanda we knew growing up. But thanks to this documentary, we now know that these children were not living their best life, child. These children were practically forced to do things that they did not want to do. And guess what? If they didn't do it as kids, they knew like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this thing, or oh my gosh, if my mom complains too much, I'm not going to be on the show. Now, is that the right line of thinking? No, but once again, we are talking about kids. So I'm just imagining myself, and I'm just like, if I was in their position as well, one, I probably would have overlooked it as well. And two, I get that line of thinking. The craziest thing to be revealed in the first 1 to 2 episodes was that there were multiple child mishandlers on the set. Multiple child mishandlers that worked at Nickelodeon with children. I had to emphasize that because it sounds crazy, right? One of the child mishandlers was Jason Handy, and he was the production assistant. He allegedly sent inappropriate pictures to an 11-year-old girl that was a cast member, and later he was arrested in 2003 for being inappropriate with other children. And it doesn't just stop there. We get to see multiple actors speak out about the questionable things that they had to do, like actor Brian Hearn. He was on All That in 2002 for the 7th and 8th seasons. And he was talking about a scene where he was the youngest rapper alive, and his name was Little Fetus, and he had to dress in like this flesh tone unitard to like represent a naked baby in the womb. And one of the costume set designers on set was like, oh, we should make his costume charcoal, in reference to him being black. And he remembered that moment and was just like, wow.
Every yo, little fetus in a womb, yeah.
Someone said the skin tone should be charcoal. I started to get teary-eyed.
And then in another skit, he talks about a scene where he was covered in peanut butter, and then dogs came and had to lick it off of him. And in the scene, you could see him saying, I don't like this. I want this to stop.
I didn't like that.
I don't like this. I feel gross.
Be for real. Why was this ever okay? Like, I'm telling you, the 90s and all of those years before, it's like y'all, some of y'all, if you're watching it and you're that old enough, some of y'all was living in a different world, child, because what the hell? Another actress that has been keeping her foot on Dan Schneider's neck is Alexa Nicholas. Alexa Nicholas played on Zoe 101. She played Nicole, and she was definitely one of my favorite characters because she was like the cute girly girl. And in the documentary, she recalled having scenes where she was just meant to be overtly sexual. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, but there was a scene where they made her chest super big, and then she was doing it in front of the boys. And like, that is the one scene I remember as a kid. It had me feeling like, oh wait, I want to have big boobs like that, because at that time they weren't big at all, child. And that's like one of the first times I can remember having a thought like that planted in my brain. And now as an adult, I'm just like, why was that ever okay? How weird. And I remember watching Zoe 101, always thinking, oh my gosh, I want to go to a boarding school like PCA. I don't want no parents around me. Y'all, it was all a lie. It was all a lie. And then at the episode 2, we get into another child mishandler on the set of Nickelodeon, surrounded by kids, working with kids. And this child mishandler is revealed to be Brian Peck. Brian Peck was an acting coach on the show All That, and in 2003, he was arrested for having inappropriate behaviors with a 15-year-old boy. In the end of episode 2, that 15-year-old boy is revealed to be Drake Bell. Now, y'all, this is when I was just like, what is going on? In 2003, Brian Peck was arrested for inappropriate behaviors with a 15-year-old boy, and he only served 16 months in prison. Yes, 16 months in prison for inappropriate behaviors with a child. And obviously, since this was with a child, the court records were sealed until this documentary was released, and Drake Bell revealed that he was that child from 2003. And I think that's so crazy, guys, because once again, as a kid, I grew up watching Drake and Josh. I remember being obsessed. As you can see, I watch a lot of TV as an adult, right? As a kid, my eyes were always glued to the TV, and I distinctly remember Drake and Josh. I remember the little sister, I think her name was Megan, and then she became iCarly, y'all. When I tell you, I became a menace to my brothers because I was like, I want to be just like that little sister to my brothers. I was a whole menace to society. I'm so sorry if my brothers are watching this, but yes, I was like, that's gonna be me. Basically, all of this began when Drake Bell was on the set of All That, I believe, and Brian Peck was kind of being weird with him and basically grooming him, you can say, because we find out that the dad realized that there was something wrong with Brian Peck, and Drake's dad eventually complained to production and was like, oh, I don't like the way this guy is around my son, because he would say he would see Brian Peck helping Drake to put on like certain clothing items, and he would be like, you don't gotta help my son do that, he could do that himself. Or he would see Brian Peck touch his arm in like a lingering way and like on his waist, and he just knew this guy was bad vibes. So when he went to go complain to production about this man being around his son and his concerns, do you know that production said to him, hey, Brian Peck is gay, so you know that's probably why he's like that. You know, he's a real touchy friendly guy, and maybe you're just a little homophobic. That was production's response to Drake's dad voicing a legit concern. So throughout the documentary, we really get to see the back and forth between Drake and his dad, because this really created a wedge in their relationship, because Drake's dad is like, yo, this guy is so weird. Like, he doesn't know what it is, but he's like, the way he's acting with my son, it's not okay. And it got to the point where Brian Peck kind of put a wedge in between them by telling Drake, oh, your dad is stealing your money, your dad is bad vibes, people on set don't like your dad, don't bring your dad around anymore. And Drake was already spending so much time with Brian Peck because he was his acting coach and stuff like that. So he's spending more time with him than he is with his dad. He's now starting to believe this as a 14-year-old kid, and he ends up firing his dad as his manager and ends up making his mom his manager and going to live with his mom. And once that decision was made, that's where everything went downhill, and that's where a bulk of the abuse started directly. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of that because, one, I really don't want to talk about that on this channel. It was very triggering to watch. I will just say that. It was very detailed. If you do want to figure out what happened, the court records are officially open. Go into Google, or you could just watch the documentary. So now Drake is experiencing a whole bunch of abuse at the hands of Brian Peck. And for a while, he doesn't say anything because he doesn't know how to process it. And two, this is literally in the middle of him becoming the biggest child actor celebrity ever. Like, literally when Drake and Josh was getting started, they were filming pilots. But it did get to a point where he said he eventually told his mom, and then that's when they went to the police. And then Drake Bell mentioned that when he had to go to court to face him during the trial, he remembered seeing so many people on Brian Peck's side that was a part of the industry. And he remembers just saying to them, like, I will forever remember you being a person that stood on my abuser's side and basically co-signed everything that he did to me. Now, in the documentary, it is said that some of these people probably didn't know the extent of everything that happened in this case with Brian Peck and Drake Bell, that they gave character witness letters without knowing the full scope of things. I call BS. I find that very hard to believe. I just don't understand how you're writing a character witness letter to a court and you don't know what you're writing a character witness letter for. Now, I've never written one, so maybe that's just on my part, but I do believe that these people knew to a certain extent what happened. They probably didn't know that it was Drake Bell, but they do know for sure that Brian Peck did something with a child as a 40-year-old man. And now in 2024, when they're probably thinking, oh, nobody will ever know that it's us because these are popular actors that we have seen on our TV. I'm just like, ooh wee, isn't that something? So like I said before, Brian Peck only gets 16 months in prison, right? And I'm assuming it's because of these wonderful character witness letters that these people wrote on his behalf. Now, a year after his sentencing, right? A year after he is released from prison after serving 16 months, tell me why he ends up getting a role at Disney, working on the set of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody with children. Working at Disney Channel with children. And you know, in the credits of these TV shows, they always like to give us the little tidbits of them reaching out to the people that's being called out. So the people that worked at Disney at the time, they were just like, oh, we didn't know that that's what he was convicted for because we just asked him, oh, is the case resolved? Is everything wrapped up? What's the status? And Brian Peck was like, yeah, the case is resolved. I'm like, so y'all expected this man to be like, oh no, I'm a child mishandler. I'm a child weirdo. I'm also on the S offendery registry. You expected him to tell you that. You didn't think to rub your two brain cells together and be like, oh, I'm gonna do due diligence and make sure that this guy can actually work on our set around other children. Be for real. But that's a quick recap of the documentary. Some of the actors, they have spoke out and said how they feel so good about finally getting recognition for their stories, because once again, some of these people have been talking about this for years and they were just blatantly ignored. But now that there's a big TV show and now that there's a wider spotlight, these actors are now getting the limelight and like everything that they kind of deserved back when they were children. I think justice is somewhat being served in a good way, and I hope that it continues to be served in whatever way that looks like. Now, I did see that Dan Schneider did this weird apology interview with the guy from iCarly. I think his name was Tebow, and basically in that interview, y'all, he basically said, I was not the only one that approved these scenes. I was not the only one that approved these skits. I was not the only one that approved these words. It was other people, and if they let me do it, why y'all not coming at them? Why y'all just coming for me? And now in 2024, he knows that there's certain things that he wouldn't do and certain things that he would do differently because times have changed. And my thing is that whether it's 2024 or the 1990s, you should know how to talk to people and act around children. You should know not to do these weird sexual scenes. Granted, you probably didn't physically do anything to anyone, but what you wrote in those scripts were very concerning. And the fact that Nickelodeon kept you as a creative director up until 2018 is even more concerning. I'm praying that something happens with Nickelodeon because child, count your days. Comment down below your thoughts on this documentary and everything that I said. How do you guys feel about this whole situation? This is one of those documentaries that I do not think I'm gonna watch again. I literally only watched it twice for the sake of this video, just to get my information correct. But this is one of the documentaries that's just gonna be like, never watch again. Because when I tell you I gave the watered down version, the documentary is so dark and it's really hard to watch, guys. Like, it really had me crying. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.